it's totally, you drown, and it's totally blinding of all the things you need to do to all the possible things you can do to grow an e-commerce website, e-commerce brand. But if you just boil it down to,
Welcome to the Real eCommerce podcast, your go-to for straight talk and smart tips from the world of online retail.
Probably be take 1,000, all phones and devices are off. So
yeah,
let's go.
exactly.
But yes, thank you so much for joining me. Rupert Holloway from Conker Spirits. As a business owner, you have to wear many hats. And that's, no more true of anyone but you, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a distiller, you're a bar owner, you're a marketeer, you're a tour guide, and that's without including all of the things you do in your home life. Presumably you're chief tester as well, or chief taster.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, actually, because literally on my desk here, this
Ah,
this got plonked on my desk like at 9:30. So this is breakfast. So we
okay.
basically, every time a product comes off the production line, it gets tasted against historical batches, just to try
Ah,
and get that consistency.
okay.
Yeah, so it's a tough job, but yeah, quick slippery slope to alcoholism.
Yeah, well, it's 10 o'clock here, so that's a very early start to the morning. Is it a bit like wine when you taste it, though? You sort of, you taste it rather than drink it?
Oh yeah,
Does
so
that give you
very much tiny sips and like little smell.
smells and...
It's just, and you can never be like completely precise. Obviously, it is ultimately just you tasting it.
Mhm.
But you're just trying to highlight where, because sometimes you're like, whoa, something's gone wrong here. That's wrong, and then you work back and you're like, wow, we actually didn't add that in. We didn't put that ingredient in. So it's just a spot wild cards, which
When
happen.
when you started configuring the recipes, was it a bit like the mad scientist bit where you were like just optimizing different flavors and things like that? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it was. It was at home. It was on a little 1 liter pot still. Um, and I just started at the very beginning, trying to like us get to a kind of the point where we would make a nice sort of London dry classic style gin.
Mhm.
And then at that, once we got there, it was like adding in botanicals from the local area, which would add, or you could swap out traditional botanicals for things which grow locally. Yeah, it was. I mean, no training. I'm not a qualified distiller. In fact, my team, Jess, is actually a qualified distiller. So there's people. Our head distiller, Jess, is actually more qualified on that than me. Um, but the initial recipe was just, the initial kind of like development was just to create that proper gin, classic in style, but made in Dorset with some Dorset botanicals. Not too wild and left field and weird. Just something that people, in my head, I had this strategy of steal the Bombay drinker.
Mhm.
That was the kind of broad kind of like outcome. So with the kind of arrival of the craft gin thing, all these people who were drinking Bombay, where would they go? They're going to go somewhere. They're all going to have a craft gin. So create something that they would enjoy, because that produces a lovely sort of traditional gin and tonic, but it's not overly dry like a London gin, Gordon style. It's a little bit lighter and fresher. So everything had a little kind of background, sort of, like North Star that we're working to. It wasn't just like scattergun, make a gin, random, go.
Were the early days like some of the most exciting, like in terms of when you were making the product?
Yeah, I mean, that was really exciting. It's strange, though, isn't it? Because at that time I was sort of unemployed and trying to develop the gin, and Emily, my wife, was paying the bills, and so as
Nervous.
exciting as it was, it's equally like you got to get this done and quick. So yeah, it's I think like now with how in how big my role has now become within the business. So the small plates become very big plates that are
Mhm.
even more sort of like important and critical. I do look back at those early days as like, as the much more enjoyable, freer,
Simplicity,
naive,
maybe.
probably a good word. So yeah, for sure. But happy early days of startup.
Are there any hats that I've just mentioned that you prefer to put on, or the ones you look forward to the most?
So I think like my happy space is in the creative and the brand for
Okay.
sure, and that kind of like brand strategy stuff. Like I've recently redone our look of how we talk about and how we market our coffee liqueur, and that's been a real like back to basics change, fundamental change in like what the value proposition of that product is and who our customer is and what it looks like, and then driving that through to like what it looks like in terms of like curating a photo shoot, our copy, our new values, creating web pages. So
Mm-hmm.
although like yeah, it's hard because I've got really like other things to do, but if I was to pick a role in Conquer and be like, that's the one I'll do and dedicate, and no one will ever talk to me about profit and loss spreadsheets again.
They're the ones you put at the back of the pile, are they?
Yeah, you know, that's where that's what I'm best at. I think that's what I'm
Yeah.
best at doing is like, yeah, curating that kind of. It's very creative, isn't it? It's a very sort of touchy feely.
But that's your connection to the brand, and that's your expression through the brand, I guess, isn't it? So for you to
Yeah,
have excitement at that and want to have a steer in that, that's kind of you coming out in the brand, I guess.
that is true. Actually, it does completely make it meaningful for me because obviously I never market anything in a way that doesn't appeal to me. But like I'm not creating a product which I would otherwise cringe at.
Yeah, it's a good
Which
place to
must be quite
start.
hard. People must do that. Like businesses must produce products where they like, I'd never buy that. But nothing in our ranges fits that. So which means that yeah, fundamentally it's all quite you know sort of central to who we are, and it's very true to who we are, which
Mhm.
makes the job easier, which makes talking about it easier, makes
What about
selling it easier.
the bar owner bit, being the sort of social host? Does that come naturally? Is it that role that you enjoy?
Yes, I had actually always I'm trying to think whether this was pre-Conker, but certainly once Conker existed, I'd always sort of thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a bar as well, like off the back of it?
Yeah.
Like the idea of like curating those spaces that people want to come to and creating drinks menus that people enjoy and stuff. So yeah, that's a really happy offshoot. It is like when I walk into the tap room on a Friday or Saturday night and it's packed full of people. It's just it's such an amazing feeling.
Brilliant.
It's like it's two layered really. Like if that was just a bar,
Mm.
brilliant. It'd be thumbs up, brilliant. We're making a few grand tonight. Happy days. Open up tomorrow. But it's not. It's they're all there experiencing the brand,
Hmm.
and they're all there. Um, People are just coming in and drinking pints, like pints of 8 ounce beer from Wimble,
Yeah.
and they might hate gin. There are
So
lots
you've
of
just
people.
created like a social place.
It's a space that people come in and use, and they might not drink gin, but they'll buy Conker for their mum at Christmas.
Hmm.
So it's all really interesting. Like it's like it's a brand experience thing. So
And it's
not only
community. No,
yeah,
it's
it's
you build, like you say, that they might not be buying the gin that day, but birthdays, Christmas, and you're in the forefront of their mind if they're spending time in
yeah,
your
and that
community.
community thing. It is true. It's potentially a bit corny, but having building something in your community that people enjoy and that
Mm.
people I go out and do tastings or events, whatever, and people say, oh, I had the most incredible tour at your distillery the other day. It's
Brilliant.
awesome.
That's
Yeah,
amazing feedback, though, isn't
yeah,
it? And do
yeah.
you find when you look at, I don't know if you've ever looked at like a map of your sort of hotspots of where you sell the most, does that nucleus start, at the distillery and sort of branch out from there, or do you have any other hotspots?
So we have recently looked at that. So we looked at that across our Amazon. We were wondering whether our new Amazon sales were just cannibalizing our local and direct, our own website sales. So we did
Mhm.
a kind of plot, and it was just red dots all over the country. So coffee, liqueur, and gin being sold all over, right, all over Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So in terms of Amazon, that's pretty widespread. And to be honest, our like direct to consumer stuff again is pretty wide. But certainly like all our hospitality, so like bars and restaurants, and then
Mhm.
retail is all sort of Dorset centric, and then sort of spreads down into sort of Devon and Cornwall,
Hmm.
and then up into sort of London Midlands. But it pops up. It pops up all over the country.
Mhm. And I think the fact that you know that sort of leads me on to the next thing. Is we were lucky enough to have you talk at the Lunch and Learn, and one of the things that you brought to your presentation was your focus on your customer journey in e-commerce. And I spend a lot of time going to businesses, and you normally find that they are very good at one thing. Like they've either got a brilliant product, or they've got a brilliant supply chain to products, or they have a really efficient pick, pack and dispatch, and they sell sort of volume, or they've got a real eye on their marketing, and their marketing is like perfect. But normally when their one thing is really, really good, a lot of the other things are just left, and they need support or they need help with. Like you've obviously got like we've said, lots of hats that you wear that you're very, very good at. But for you to also have, as the business owner, such a focus on e-commerce, I thought was, pretty unique. A lot of founders start by just engrossing themselves into the product, perhaps, or the brand, like you say, the bits that you enjoy. But you also tear yourself away from that to do the things that are important to help grow the brand, which is, what you brought to that meeting. You had a thing that you talked through, which was your revenue multiplier. Does that come from a place of really enjoying looking at e-commerce and the statistics that delivers through sales and things like that?
Just to like clarify, like my knowledge on or my breadth of knowledge across the business, that's like 10 years. It's 10 years in. So if you'd come to me 2 years ago, you wouldn't have found me so knowledgeable about e-commerce and stuff. So it takes time, like you do start, when I started the business, incredibly product focused and brand and did no sales focus. So it, over 10 years, especially over the last 10 years, where there's been such dramatic sort of reinvention of the whole market in terms of like ability to sell into pubs and venues and having to shift to e-commerce. Like we've been forced to rethink where our customer is. With less customers going into hospitality, we were like, right, they're drinking at home. So how do we reach them at home? And so we reach people at home through places, things like e-commerce and other people's websites, but direct consumer it's just it just became a no-brainer, and wanting to basically emulate what like clothing brands like Passenger and Finister and people like that do. They don't have any retail partners. They are entirely in charge of their destiny, which is very appealing and very attractive. So we just wanted to build up a slice of the portfolio of our whole business, which we can own and grow. And also like we could spend £10,000, say, activating in hospitality in Dorset, sending someone out to visit accounts, and then no one opens the door, no one opens an email, it gets listed, and then it gets delisted. It's a real like you're sort of blowing that 10 grand in the wind and hoping something sticks. Whereas the logic was over the last few years, with such reduced amount of, our finances are so tight. Where can we most effectively put that money? And so building out e-commerce, understanding what precisely we should do, and spending money in very precise areas to move the dial on our direct income, which we can then control and scale. So that's where that growth revenue multiplier came from, and it was just through research. It's just through looking at people, mostly sort of people online, shouting to the camera about what you need to do to grow e-commerce. And this recurring theme was this, like, if you want growing revenue on your website, basically is achieved through various things you can do to grow your revenue each day, each month.
It's interesting because a lot of businesses would go, okay, we need to find someone to do this role, or we need to hire a team member or whatever, and you've sort of taken the chalice on yourself. Does that come from just every part of your business you want to have a good understanding of, perhaps before you take that leap?
Yeah, it's definitely the harder option because it's you're having to teach yourself. It takes longer, and I think I'd be lying if I said that if we had deep pockets and invest heavily amount of investment, we wouldn't find these people who are telling me how it works and appointing them to get the stuff done. Like we would be doing that, but I wouldn't be doing that blind without learning it to some degree, and we wouldn't be sort of saying, "Here's the product, just sell it for us." So I've definitely taken it on myself as because needs must, right? Like we can't, over the last 3 to 5 years since COVID, we haven't been able to make hires within the business, within like e-commerce particularly. And then, agencies who deliver these kinds of promises they come with, that comes with a big ticket.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
it's been a necessity. That said, we're better for it, right? We're better, a business with a founder who's getting his, getting his feet wet in the real nitty gritty. It's got to be better. It's got to be better informed. The only thing is, it just obviously it does distract from other things, and you can only do so many things. So it's a huge challenge to. So, for example, give you an idea of my day already. My alarm went off at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I sat down at sort of 5:30 and was on the website, building pages on the website.
Mhm.
This new brand stuff that we've been doing, getting it onto the brand pages, looking at our Klaviyo flows to make sure that all the post-purchase flows are all happening that they should do.
Mhm.
That's before, before a quick
Before your
run.
gin
And
tasting.
yeah, and so it is, it's brutal, but that's the game, unfortunately.
I think what struck me was like your understanding of like almost three pillars that helped improve revenue. And you had, we've got three things that we can tweak or affect or optimize, right? To
Yeah,
make the website work better. And you had that down as number of customers, order frequency, and the average order value.
yeah.
And under each of those, you put the things that you can do to tweak those. How did you come up with those three to start with? Was that through research? Was that through looking at data? How did you get there?
Yeah, so that's all through research. Like it's not something, I'm never going to claim that to be my own. It's certainly
Mhm.
out there in the kind of, amongst the kind of marketeers. Again, agencies putting out these sort of gems of nuggets. They don't tell you how to deliver it and how
Mhm.
to, the fundamentals, but they give you the overarching principle.
Where to
And
start pointing the
yeah,
pointing the
and it's like
action?
it's what's nice is that it's like exponential. I don't know the mathematical term, but it's like basically it's an equation, right? So if you've got you currently have 50 customers, and they currently spend on average £30 every time they shop with you, and they shop with you once a year.
Mhm.
That equals X in terms of revenue.
Mhm.
But you only need to tweak. You only need to go from 50 to 53 customers, and then average order value to go to £33, and then
Mhm.
for them to order twice a year, or not even twice a year, 1.2 times a year.
Mhm.
It's like an exponential game. So
Mhm.
like you yeah, if you're generating 10 grand a year through your website, it might feel like a really daunting task to double that, or
Mhm.
even get 50% uplift. But actually, like you say, what can you do to increase the number of customers to your site? So
It's like a compounding effect, isn't it?
it's compounding, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's that kind of like this won't be right, so don't write this down. But like a 1% uplift in each of those equals, a greater, 10% uplift in total revenue.
And,
But
and
the main thing is about it is focusing the mind, because it's totally, you drown, and it's totally blinding of all the things you need to do to all the possible things you can do to grow an e-commerce website, e-commerce brand. But if you just boil it down to, okay, today we're working on this, a number of customers coming to site.
Mhm.
And then you've got obviously things like all your ads, Google ads, Meta ads, people just finding your site. So SEO, just people chucking in coffee liqueur into Google, us actually appearing, which is actually not that easy.
Mhm.
It's months of work just to
Mhm.
make that happen. But so you're just drilling down into things which, again, going back to that analogy of like, if you've got 10 grand to spend that you can't afford to lose, it needs to really work. You pick in each, number of customers, order value, um, order frequency. You just pick things which will improve those things.
Was it like you had different, maybe a bit of a broad term, but like campaigns on each one? So you go, right, I'm just going to focus on the number of customers this month, and then next month I'm going to focus on order frequency, or however. Did it plan out like that, or did you just kind of try and optimize each one all the
Yeah, I
time.
think it's a low hanging fruit thing, isn't it? There are some blindingly, like, when you start looking at these things, you realize how blindingly obvious and
Mm-hmm.
like simple, like an hour's work will fix one of the issues.
Yeah.
Like some sort of call to action button on your website, or the fact that once you really look at your website, actually it's quite hard to find this product, or
Mm-hmm.
the biggest win, and this is something we didn't do for years, was having basically a proper um, um, like communications post purchase with our customers. So they would buy a bottle, they'd get their receipt, and we'd never talk to them ever again.
Right.
It's like the worst thing you can do,
Yeah.
and we'd have like, you know, 20,000 newsletter subscribers, and we'd just send them the same like campaigns. So we'd just send them an email going, oh, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this. So no segmentation, so no like identifying which customers have bought which product and therefore sending them specific emails about coffee or specific emails about gin,
Mm-hmm.
and then no flows. So no, like, if someone's looked at the so a big driver of uh, average order value or number of customers is just an abandoned cart flow.
Mm-hmm.
So if people have been on your website,
Mm-hmm.
they've looked at the product or they put it into their cart, but they've never completed the purchase. We set up, those emails that go, you've left something behind in your basket. That's if you're concentrating on that, like at the end of a week, you'll have abandoned cart and browse abandoned sort of flows set up, which means that customers who just otherwise would have just left the scene do end up purchasing. So yeah, I think it's an endless job. Don't get me wrong, it's an endless job, all these to-do lists around all the things that turn the dial on number of customers, etc. But it's the low hanging fruit, it's the quick wins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the whole thing where you look at it and go, God, has our website been doing that all this time?
It's like a
So
high value, low cost or low time to implement, isn't
yeah,
it? Start with
yeah,
that.
there's loads of them. Yeah, growing your newsletter, making sure, have we something that's been really successful for us is growing our subscribers to our newsletter with
Mm-hmm.
a social campaign to give away tour tickets, which has been really successful. So we give away a tour a month.
Mm-hmm.
We give away a lot more than that, to be honest. We just tend to just batch wins to people.
Yep.
Um, and then people subscribe, and then we've got them as people we can talk to when it comes to Black Friday and all this sort of stuff. But it's having a list, knowing where they've come from, what they look at, what they buy, nurturing them through their customer journey, basically.
There's one thing I've tried to talk to a lot of businesses about is like we're all focused on the order, the sale, and the journey the user goes through to make that sale. But actually, quite often there's like a secondary objective, which could be to gain a newsletter subscriber or an account sign up customer, because that then opens that communication channel for you to be able to talk to them over the long term rather than just them trying to complete a sale. Do you put any focus on, you obviously have with competitions and things like that, on collecting newsletter subscribers? Is that like a secondary strategy to open up that communication?
Yeah, so in our flows, so in a post-purchase flow, so automated emails basically that
Mm-hmm.
follow a purchase, we split them out between subscribed and unsubscribed, because obviously a post-purchase, you can only send just an email to someone so many times. It has to be essentially transactional emails, and you can't continue to email someone who's never subscribed. So in those two, maybe three transactional emails that follow a purchase where they're unsubscribed, we're sort of saying subscribe. We're really trying to get them to subscribe. So we will offer them, a discount to do that. We'll often offer a discount to leave a review. And as part of that review process, it's like signing up as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Like you can only ram messages down people's throats so much before it's just there's so much messaging and so many calls to action. But yeah, we certainly try. Like we split these audiences in these flows
Mm-hmm.
between people who are going to stick around and people who aren't, people who have purchased, people who haven't.
Is there like an added value, like newsletter or flow that you do for like recipes and other things that you do? that add
Yeah,
value to the person who's
yeah,
bought the product?
the welcome flow. So like once people subscribe, they go through our what's called our welcome flow, which is essentially so someone is subscribed, they're either a customer or they're not. And this is a point where people are interested in what we do, they haven't purchased, but they need to know a bit more about what we do. So it's
Mhm.
that warming up from a stranger to an acquaintance to a buyer, right? To a
Mhm.
customer. So in that, it's like what we do, why we like the Conker story, our values, you know, a little product focus on particular things. I've actually got to improve our welcome flow because it's possibly one of the first things we renovated when we were looking at all this. But yeah, so we've certainly got like the best ones are like if you know someone's purchased a coffee liqueur and they're subscribed, then we can really focus that subscribed email journey
Mhm.
by sending them, oh, did you know it's great over ice cream? Have you tried the deep bath? And then the next stage for us is subscription. So it's like, did you know you can buy a bottle twice a day for the next 6 years?
Twice a day. Yeah. You
Yeah.
must
So
like ice cream.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So segmentation. So messaging that means something to your audience rather than just blanket emailing, and
Oh,
understanding where they are in the customer journey as well. So if they are a subscriber and they've never purchased, or if they're a VIP customer and they purchase all the time,
yeah.
before 2, 3 years ago, completely oblivious to all of it. And yeah, so it's just knowing your customer, isn't it, really, and where
I,
they
w-
are.
I was going to
What
ask, like, what marketing activity or change in the business has led to the biggest growth? This sounds like perhaps one of them. Is it the sort of thing that's transformed the business the most? Maybe opening that communication, staying in touch with customers. Was
Yeah,
there
I
something
mean,
else you think?
tricky that. I'd say opening up the distillery to the public's been huge. So
Okay.
we've always run tours, but it was like once a month, and there were like 12 people. We didn't really have the space. Now it's like tours and tap rooms every Friday, every Saturday.
Hmm.
And so that's been a really great thing for what we were talking about earlier around terms of that brand experience and having a real hub in the community.
Hmm.
There's also a really significant revenue for us through our website. So we sell more tour tickets and tour gifts through the site than we do bottles of gin.
Well,
So
okay.
and a lot of that is people gifting tickets
Hmm.
and gifting vouchers
Hmm.
to come and see us. So
Does that mean you have a peak like Christmas and like people buying a lot more at that time?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been pretty game changing. And then, as part of that, we run some quite successful social meta campaigns, which
Mhm.
show people what these tours and tap rooms are like. And those have really good sort of ROAS in terms of like that converting clicks back through to the website and
Mhm.
people purchasing tickets. So yeah, thinking about it, I would say that's probably been, in terms of like carving out direct revenue that we doesn't rely on the Waitrose buyer,
Mhm.
or any and doesn't rely on any outside party in terms of
Yep.
the future of the business. It's something we can really rely on, which is so vital.
Is there a conversion rate you look at from the number of tickets sold to the number of purchases of bottles of gin they leave with?
Well, so it's really good. So if you've got a table of sort of 20 people, they could upwards of sort of £1,000 of bottles will be purchased on the night.
Wow.
So it's really, really, really effective. And, even if, so a lot of people who've been gifted that ticket haven't been paid to be there. So
Yeah.
they're kind of already thinking, well, I'm going to take a couple of bottles home.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic revenue. And then the tap room as well. And our tap room drinks menu is really cheap, like relatively, like we purposefully, because we're not buying in spirits, which is a
Mhm.
bar's main cost.
Mhm.
We've reflected that in our bar prices. So you can get a double gin and tonic for like £9, which is like unheard of, right? So we like that because it's just a place where you can come and hang out, and it's not as pricey.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's the main thing. The biggest shift was in terms of like whole business strategy, we've been launching the coffee liqueur, so stepping away from gin. Like
Mhm.
we are eternally grateful we made that call back in 2017, so really early on. Um, yeah, I kind of dread to think what if we were just really stuck in our ways and being like, no, we're a gin brand. I think we'd be in quite a lot of trouble now.
Mhm.
Um, just because it's just a very saturated. It's the appetite in the market's changed.
Mhm.
People will always drink gin. It'll be a big thing for us and grow, but having that coffee liqueur, which is a national, global opportunity for us because there's no Dorset borders on that. It's nothing
Yep.
about Dorset. So that was really key as well.
I was at
Um,
the I don't know if you've ever been to the Bread and Jam Festival in London a couple of
oh
weeks
yeah,
ago. And there's a lot of like new innovative brands trying to get into, D2C. And I kind of recited your campaign for the coffee liqueur because it starts with a sample, doesn't it? Which you actually said is like a loss leader, isn't it? They pay for
yeah,
the postage, you pay for the sample.
yeah. It
Um,
is.
and talk us through what that flow is, because that's kind of like there's a sample, there's a discount, and then there's a subscription offer, isn't there? Or is that how it works?
There's no subscription yet, but that's the plan. So
Okay.
the idea is that like nothing sells the coffee liqueur like people trying it. Like we do sampling in test in our local Waitrose, and when people try it, they're like, "Wow!" So it's a real stark difference to the industry in terms of that flavor and the
Hmm.
experience of that. So, and when you're trying to get new customers, the main problem with our products are they're expensive. Our bottle of coffee liqueur is £31. So when you're pitching it to someone on social media, that's a big punt for them to go, yeah, okay.
Hmm.
So um, so we needed this trial. We needed this like virtual trial. So where we're not having to be there in person. So we decided to launch this 100 ml sample, which is two double measures. So it's a lot. There's a lot of liquid. So we're basically giving that away. It costs us £3.99 to deliver it. So if you cover the postage, you get this coffee liqueur sample, which um, is worth. We don't sell them on the website, but it's worth £7.50. I think we would sell it
Hmm.
at. So that's been really successful. Last month, a couple of hundred have gone out through just across the country. It goes out with a little flyer which explains the single ingredient espresso martini serve. So basically, you shake it up over ice, touch of water, espresso martinis made easy.
Hmm.
Um, so and yeah, so the driving trial and then making sure we've got that post-purchase flow and sort of basically trying to get people to go to the buy a big bottle, buy a 70 cl bottle. So
And
they've
that's
done the
via
trial.
email and flyer in the box as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so the flyer has a call to action,
Hmm.
scan here for 20% off, and then
Hmm.
the email flows are, how was it? Leave a review. Here's 20% off a big bottle.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and we need to do some work around like that second half of it and getting that conversion up. It's still a bit slow, that kind of uplift to 70 cl,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's going to be instant. I think that's the one thing is that people have this product. Some will be like, brilliant, yeah, I'll have it now. Whereas actually, a lot of people are like, actually, it's great, but I'll get it for Christmas or I'll get
Hmm.
it for this. So I think it will be that kind of the bigger bottle sales off the back of the 100 ml samples won't be as perhaps instantaneous as we first imagined it would be. People sort of clambering at the bit to get hold of it.
But
So
presumably, once you've got a sample sale and a discount bottle sale, you could segment that audience in Klaviyo and then promote a subscription at the end, right?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so what's nice about this new coffee liqueur project was that we started from scratch on these flows, and the ones we've got for Conquer are great, but they were kind of like born out of me learning, the basics of it and building it out. And actually, 2 years on, started these new ones, and it was like,
You know exactly what you're doing half the
yeah,
time.
exactly. Yeah, it was great. So, and they're nice and simple. But yeah, fundamentally, it's nurturing that journey.
Hmm.
If people don't purchase a 100 ml bottle, then can we get them subscribed? Like, they're obviously that interested that they drop the product into their cart.
Hmm.
So can we get them subscribed? Um, so we've set up the Conker Coffee Club, which is a kind of dedicated audience for coffee liqueur, and battling with the next move really, which I'm kind of like, I think I know is needed, but basically setting up a new website dedicated to coffee liqueur, because at the moment I'm trying to split the site, which is what we've done since day one. But I actually think we need to go all in and create a coffee liqueur Shopify site, which we then link all. It's completely dedicated to coffee, because there's still this like distraction. There's still this sort of like we don't really want people who've arrived about coffee to land on our products about gin, because it's not what they're after, and it's sort of confusing and just distracting. So yeah,
Is that where something like a sort of experiential page might work as a hybrid in the middle? So
is that sort of landing page type stuff?
Yeah, like a long flowing landing page, a bit like Apple do for an iPhone. You've got one page that goes into all of the features, functions, how to pour it, recipe. Like it's an immersive experience really.
Well, we built landing pages, so this is the first time we've done this properly. So we built landing pages which didn't have any navigation away from them, didn't have the burger menu to like a hamburger menu, not food, that little thing.
Yeah.
So the click didn't have any navigation away to gin and tours and all this sort of stuff, and it was like, it's almost like a coffee liqueur website, but as a landing page, hidden landing page in the Conker site. So that's working well, and that's where people are converting to buy the 100 ml samples. I just wonder whether it needs a more brutal separation to really work properly, and working back to our main like sort of business strategy as well, is growing that Conker coffee liqueur brand and owning coffee liqueur in the UK.
How's it been received by like retail, like bars, restaurants, things like that? Because this must save a huge amount of time in preparing that as a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's
espresso martinis. You're reducing your side benefit is you're making everybody's queue at the bar quicker.
Yeah, it's across the board. So in hospitality and in retail, the espresso martinis without the coffee machine is a huge win. In retail, so people drinking at home, it's absolutely perfect fit, no brainer. If people are interested in the cocktail and they work out they can make the drink at home without the coffee machine, bar quality every single time, that's a real, like when you think of this, it's a real consumer problem that we're solving. And that's all brands need to do. Like, a brand exists to solve a consumer's problem, and it has to have this unique value proposition which makes someone go, that will make my life better.
This problem, solve it.
Yeah. So it completely, like, it's like the perfect product to market. In the hospitality, it's slightly different, because you've got all these. First, we've got all these different types of venues. So you've got, on one end, you've got like Weatherspoons, right? And then at the other end, you've got the Ivy, and like, well, not even the Ivy, but like maybe even independent like cocktail bars, or places where the cocktail experience is the most important thing, or the cocktail curation is the most important thing. And you've got every type of bar in between, including Fuller's and Woodhouse local pubs and stuff. And every single one has a different strategy to cocktails, opinion on cocktails, audience preference, like what their customer wants, size of bar, whether they've got the staff to make cocktails. So it's this like, in principle, 100%, it solves the espresso martini in hospitality for every venue. But the reality is, 25% of them want to make it the traditional way, which is great, and they can use Conker coffee liqueur in the traditional way, using it with espresso and stuff. 25% of the market doesn't do cocktails at all. So you've got to really find your customer. You've got to really hunt out who your perfect hospitality venue is. So we did that recently. So one of our big customers is Cavendish Ships. So a pallet of coffee liqueur goes out every month and floats around the Mediterranean, basically. So all of like P&O cruises and all that sort of stuff, they shake up our espresso martini on their ships. So that got us thinking of like, right, who else has that model? Who else has that kind of all-inclusive captive customer? Need to sell cocktails, but it's a commodity kind of cocktail. It's like it needs to be delicious and quick and tick all the right boxes, but it's not necessary for the bartender to be making an espresso and wearing a pinny and doing it all fancy.
Sure.
So we were thinking of like, these like all-inclusive places, like we're thinking maybe like Centre Parks or like Butlins or all these sorts of things. So it's actually like, what's working? What, like, your customers will tell you what's working. So Cavendish ships, P&O, this solves a huge problem for them. It's almost like that retail problem solved. It's almost like
Hotel chains maybe as well, because
hotel chains, exactly, and just finding those people who have that same problem. But in hospitality, it's that one level of it's that one step away from the pure and simple black and white. This solves it. It depends on where you are, and what you're doing.
And
But
just moving.
The liqueur is, it is a coffee liqueur. The Conker coffee liqueur is a coffee liqueur. It's not an espresso martini in a bottle. So loads of venues have it as their coffee liqueur and they use it as such. But for that specific espresso martini serve, it's perhaps a little bit more nuanced in terms of finding who those are.
And is this the product you're looking to also get into the supermarkets? Because again, loads of people we spoke to at the Bread and Jam, the reason why the event is so good is because they have like meet the buyers or meet the supermarket, meet the wholesaler, and these brands can go and pitch their products at them. I didn't realize it was as competitive as it was. I mean, I know it was competitive, but when I was speaking to a data analyst there who helps the brands get into supermarkets, she said, when you pitch, you've almost got to tell them who you're taking off the shelf to put you on the shelf. And it's almost a bit cutthroat in that way that, why do you feel that you can replace X on the shelf? How did you get your sort of foot in the door with the supermarkets and grocers and wholesalers?
Well, in the early days of the gin boom, and us being Dorset's first, it was incredibly easy because all these supermarkets were thinking about regional products, and we were the Dorset gin. So Waitrose, M&S, Tesco's, and the like, over the course of, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, 5 years, all came on. There was no like hard pitching to boardrooms. It was we want to stock a Dorset gin. You are the Dorset gin. Can we stock you?
So your uniqueness carried you through.
Yeah, well, the fact that we delivered, like, again, it's like they had a need, and we were it. We were the solution. So it's about it was that initial motivation for me to set up Conker, was that Dorset needs a gin. If I don't do it, someone else will, and if it's done right and it's delicious and looks good, and it will tick the box for Dorset, for that local product thing that hotels and restaurants and everyone needs.
Does it make it easier for product number 2? The sort of other paths easier to?
So the coffee liqueur got into Waitrose off the back of the gin, and now the coffee liqueur. So we're currently in 12 stores, sort of regionally, and we're hunting out our national listing, the coffee in Waitrose. So that's our next must win. And we're doing really well. The buyer met with the buyer about 3 or 4 times last year. He's keen. We just need to demonstrate some numbers, this rate of sale, which we're smashing. So that will be, we need that basically national retail position. We need basically someone to be able to run a social ad in it all over the country and be like, head 20 minutes down the road to your local Waitrose, rather than, order from us, or, they can't get hold of it. So for us to have that national retail, that shelf where Conker coffee liqueur is, the sale in Waitrose, in that kind of category of retailer, it would be pretty game changing for our business.
That's the next big thing to tick off for you, is it?
Working hard at getting that.
Great. The other thing I saw on your website was your efforts to be fully sustainable and actually net positive by 2030. Is that a personal, or is that a business focus? Is that a bit of both? Is it hard to achieve? Have you set out a lot of objectives to get to that?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's definitely personal, because there's no way any business can operate without, there's no way you can run a business now in any way that doesn't, completely mitigate all the impacts of your business, because it's with, huge waste producers, energy consumers, all this sort of stuff. There is a business drive, so there is obviously a consumer expectation, and the word expectation is the right word, because it used to be something that you would we rant and rave about, and it would be most sustainable distillery in the UK. Whereas now, I'm pretty sure the consumer just says, well, it's just expected, right? It's not new. It's not oh wow, these guys are doing this with 100% renewable electricity. It's like, well, if you're not, then wow. It's a bit like how we shifted the coffee liqueur chat from away from the coffee quality, which is all essentially barista quality coffee for coffee liqueur, to the pitch around the espresso martini, because the quality was just a given. If you're a craft spirit or a coffee liqueur, coming into that premium category above Kahlua, you're going to be using specialty grade coffees. They're going to be sustainable. And so if you're just shouting about that, the consumers we assumed you were, that sort of thing.
Is that something you have to check? Is it something you have to check quite rigorously with supply chain and things that you sell into as well? Because you mentioned putting things onto the ships and stuff like that. Obviously, that you've got your delivery to that end port or whatever it is. Do you count until you've delivered to your customer, or until it's been poured?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think your responsibility in terms of packaging you source and you produce, and reducing the amount of or eliminating plastics and increasing recyclables in the physical product. Your supply chain, obviously, you can choose as best as possible where you source your products from and how they're transported and all this sort of stuff. At this stage, it's a lot of offsetting, and I think a lot of businesses will use offsetting because they can't. You might be able to quantify your impact, but you can't reduce it by choosing a different supplier, because no one's really providing a really significant, affordable alternative. But you can go, well, we are going to offset this carbon through various schemes, and there's loads of things like that. We're just about to pull the trigger on one of those, which will offset through tree planting, if you like. And then we use entirely renewable power at the distillery. But I'll be honest, our hands are tied until business is booming. It's a very expensive thing to do really impressive, glossy, shiny things when you walk in the distillery, it's solar powered and all this sort of stuff. But in the interim, as you're growing and you've got, to be honest, other priorities, you can do things sustainably through offsetting and through.
I think it's definitely, like you said, something people are expecting a lot more now. And the bar has been raised, and it's also something that weaves nicely into your story and your narrative, and a reason why people would choose to buy from you. Like you said that it's a reasonably expensive product, £31 for a bottle of liqueur. Well, if people can see that there's a level of attention gone into that as well, that also helps with that price point, because they understand your commitment and your sustainability come at a cost, and you can't swallow all that cost, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the raspberry gin, we use British raspberries. They're a lot more expensive than foreign raspberries. They come from Hereford rather than frozen and come in from Europe or what have you. The coffees we use are from sustainable coffee farms. We don't use coffees that have been grown in pesticides, and so it's all those sorts of things that are the most meaningful for me. There's packaging and energy and transport and all that sort of stuff. But the thing that often, certainly like the consumer, you hear as a consumer is things like people being paid fairly for their products, right? So people, coffee growers, all this sort of stuff. So we're ticking all those boxes and more. In fact, like we don't work with fair trade coffee because actually we want to just work with sustainable coffee farms that we choose. So we don't work, fair trade's great, but actually we can go a little bit further and pick our farms and work almost directly through one or two partners and work with farms that we go and visit.
That's a hands-on process for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
we work really closely with Bean Press Coffee Roasters in Dorset. Ben, he's been our sort of like coffee partner on the project since day one, and it's just been for him. It's a red line. Like the products he works with have to tick that quality and also sustainable quota.
Have you looked at like B Corp or anything like that? There's a lot of brands that try and go out with that as the sort of gold standard from the outset.
Yeah, so we've done the initial sort of process on that. So it's that kind of first few steps. I think we'll get it. I think it is a little bit kind of corporate tick boxing. I think you can achieve it through. I think you can do things. I don't know how to say this without poo-pooing B Corp, but basically it is a stamp of approval. But again, a bit like that fair trade thing, you can do it in your own way without having to get that.
I think when you've got a product, food and drink product, and it's on the shelf, it is kind of that, like you say, a stamp of approval, isn't it? It's something that the consumer recognizes and immediately associates all of those sustainability things with you and your brand. So it's almost like a governing body, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah. I think those like stamps of approval, like you say, those sort of logos that consumers see. Same as like our awards, like when we win an award and we, get a little badge of approval for the quality of the product. That's really important for the consumer. So yeah, we'll certainly be pursuing those things.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your time today. With your permission, I'd love to be able to put a link in the description and share your revenue multiplier and the things that you had underneath that as the different activities that move the needle in each sort of pillar. Are you happy for us to do that?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Rupert Holloway from Conker Spirits. You've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much.
Follow the Real eCommerce podcast and visit realagency.co.uk for more e-commerce content like this.